Today, me and my friend are going to be playing Napoleon and the Coalition, 1805 edition. I will be playing the Coalition, and my friend will be playing the French Alliance, and we will battle it out over the next few days. My strategy as the Coalition this time is going to be different from my normal one. Normally, I go for a Baltic strategy and try to support the Russians as the British with a large army and hopefully defeat Napoleon on the field of battle. This time, I'm going to send all of the British effort that I can into the Mediterranean to attempt to strangle the Ottoman Empire by convoying all of its zones and gaining a few bases to launch attacks. As the Russians, I'll pull back these armies whenever I can and prepare a massive invasion of the Balkans, while also building up a large fleet in the Black Sea to hopefully invade Constantinople, or at least force him on the defensive there. While Prussia and Austria attempt to hold off Napoleon as long as possible, hopefully, with all the different peace treaties that I can use to my advantage, Britain will have enough time to consolidate in the Mediterranean, and Russia will have defeated the Ottoman Empire, so we can turn all of our effort against just a massive southern campaign against Napoleon. It'll be dangerous and risky, but we'll see how it goes.
Here is my strategy for the upcoming war between Napoleon and the coalition. It is 1805. Napoleon is in Switzerland instead of, historically, he was up north. But his plan is to push through both General Mack in Bavaria and the advanced Russian units in Western Austria to quickly threaten Vienna and try to knock Austria out of the game, or at least force it into peace early. But Napoleon also might do a very quick invasion of Prussia through Bohemia and either Silesia or Saxony and get a quick knockout of Prussia, and if Austria is still at war, come back and finish off Austria then. I also want to make steady progress in Italy. I'm going to build up some transports to move some units and hopefully take control of most of the coalition-controlled Mediterranean. In Spain, Spain wants to send a few cavalry to help Napoleon, but then build up some units to eventually siege Gibraltar, maybe helped by a French task force. I want to build up a little naval units, though not focus too much on the Navy until at least somewhat later. I'm going to lose Norway eventually, but I want to make Britain battle for it to delay its bonus. I want to build up the Ottomans, try to build up some ships in the Black Sea to force the Russians to pay for ships. That'll take a little away from the Russian economy. And I think that's pretty much it. So we'll see how it goes.
Ending turn 2 with the hard-fought but quick defeat of Austria, and Napoleon is now in Prussia. So from left to right, Britain has moved the majority of their fleet down to Portugal, and they have a small Mediterranean contingent that is looking about surrounded at this point. The Russians are helping out a little bit too in the Mediterranean, but in general it's very even, I guess. I don't know. Feels even. Up north, the French fleet at, what is that, Brest? Okay, the French fleet at Brest has broken out, and well, it's probably going to be contained very quickly, hopefully at least. The French are piling up a fleet up north, and in the mainland, I guess the French are just pushing towards Austria and Prussia.
Yep, they've conquered all of Germany, and they are well into Prussia. But
Prussia's going to pull its special move, which is retreating all of its cavalry away.
So it looks like.
Russia is piling up a large fleet in the Black Sea to face against the Ottomans.
The Ottomans have been building up units in several places, but are rather scared of the Russian fleet.
Yeah.
Which they should have been in real life, too.
Indeed. And then, I guess, even further left, a small Ottoman force is gathering against Persia. So they'll probably be friends, right?
That's one interpretation, or they're just hiding as far away as possible from Russia.
That too. Then the Grand Army itself, in Prussia, is probably where the main action is going to be happening as Napoleon finishes off what remains of Prussia. And I don't know, we'll see. finishing up turn 4 with 2 turns of war and peace. The Russians made the Peace of Tilsit with France and have now declared war against the Ottoman Empire as the Ottoman fleet moves to fight the British. But first, starting in Iberia, the Spanish are making attacks against the British, helping the French in Portugal.
Actually, the French moved in first and the Spanish came in behind to support them.
Yeah, okay, well, one way or the other. And then the main action, I think, this game has been in the Mediterranean, where the British are moving in large fleets, but the Franco-Spanish Ottoman Navy has concentrated near Sicily, I guess.
And have captured Sicily and Sardinia.
Yep.
Whether they will regret that as a result of the loss of their combined fleets, we may find out.
Well, I'm not sure. This British combined fleet will probably not be enough to take on that Ottoman fleet, that Ottoman French fleet.
Critically, under the Treaty of Tilsit, France has a choice of taking 2 warships of the peace-offering country, and there was a Russian ship line in the south and one in the north, both of which were taken by France and put in Denmark, but it also prevented a Russian breakthrough for the British Gibraltar
something
fleet.
I did not expect. Moving into the Atlantic, with the large British Navy moving down south to the Mediterranean, the Atlantic is looking pretty open as France concentrates with massive navies against the British Isles. But Wellington is here, so I'm sure everything will be perfectly fine.
And he's looking at the fleet, so they are getting nervous.
Yes.
At the same point, no one really knows who Wellington is at this point, and he wasn't even Wellington.
Well, Sir Arthur Wellesley is still threatening. France itself is pretty defended and is moving down against Italy.
Actually, Napoleon and the Grand Army may start to look towards other parts of Europe since they're now at peace with Russia.
Yeah, the Grand Army isn't quite as grand as it began with, but it's still certainly a force to be reckoned with. And Austria, while at peace, is just pumping out a lot of units.
They've been rebuilding with certainly peaceful thoughts on their minds.
Yep. That's about all that... finally, the Russians and Prussians have launched their attack against the Ottoman Empire in Persia. Russia just barely destroying that fortress in Moldavia. And the Prussians capturing Tehran, which is one of my favorite moves.
Now being called Prussia?
Prussia? I don't know. Something along those lines. The Russian army under Kutuzov is pretty formidable. And hey, Kutuzov in the Ottoman Empire, that's going to go well. The Russian fleet enjoys complete dominance in the Black Sea, as the Ottoman fleet is left to help out its allies in the Mediterranean. But that's just about all that's happened on turn 3 and 4. Finishing up turn 6 with Napoleon in Iberia and the French conquest of Scandinavia as large armies build up on all sides. First off, starting in Iberia, Napoleon has gone to Gibraltar, but those British siege guns destroyed half of Napoleon's siege gun force, and when the Spanish came in to support Napoleon, they also failed to attack the fortress. Gibraltar holds strong, and Napoleon feels overly exposed at this point. He's still safe, of course.
That's a rumor. He denies feeling exposed.
I think he's pretty darn exposed, if you'd ask me. But not much action in Iberia. The British fleet has scared away the large Franco-Ottoman Spanish fleet, who are now pursuing the Russians.
They have strategically split into multiple forces.
Yeah. The French force there is at peace with Russia, but the Spanish and Ottoman force are not at peace with Russia. So...
And there was a significant naval battle, which resulted in slightly higher Russian losses, which why the Russians retreated into port to repair these 4 previously damaged ships of the line.
Yep, but overall, it feels like the coalition is slowly winning in the Mediterranean and the Black Sea, as even though Russia was pushed back, the British now have complete dominance of the Western Mediterranean.
Though on land, the French have their greatest control so far, having captured Scandinavia and holding all of Prussia, Germany, Italy, among other things.
Yeah, that's about it. I think we'll totally win if that's the case. A large British fleet in the Atlantic is being very scary to the French fleet. It looks like those 6 frigates, those are there. Yeah. Thank you. But yeah, the British fleet is very large around the home isles, but the French fleet is still something to be scared of.
The Danish-French fleet is pretty strong. Maybe not quite as strong as the British home fleet, but certainly a force to be reckoned with.
Davout sits on the border with Austria, as Schwarzenberg, with a supermassive army...
Archduke Charles.
Archduke Charles. You're right. At this point, it's Archduke Charles. Archduke Charles, with a very massive Austrian army, sits and is now facing off against the French
Davout is up there.
Yes. Shouldn't that be Berthier?
Davout was there.
Davout was there. Yeah, but Berthier was in command, so I'm pretty sure that's Berthier.
Napoleon's wised up.
The Austrians still have the initiative, as over the next couple turns, they'll be choosing where the war is fought. Will it be fought in Germany? Or more Germany? Or Italy, potentially? They've got a lot of options.
They could go up to Prussia.
And where the real action has been happening for the last couple turns, however, is probably in the Black Sea region on land. Kutuzov marches down with a large army. However, the Ottoman force is also very large. They've got a large fleet and a large army facing Kutuzov. And over here in the more eastern side of the war, Prussia maintains dominance in Persia, Persian Prussia, or Prussian Persia.
Say that several times fast.
Yeah. And the Russians have finally pulled away from this front as they need to support Kutuzov from the Caucasus front, because they need to support Kutuzov in the main theater in the Balkans. But so far, mostly it's just been building up with Austria, France, the British Navy. Although there has been action over there, a lot of battling is going to happen in the coming turns.
Franco-Austrian war is definitely threatening around turn 8 to 9.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back at turn 8. Finishing up turn 8, and several small wars are about to converge into one massive war. But beginning in Iberia, you have the French. I guess they're down in Gibraltar, and the Spanish are there too. And the Spanish just launched a massive storming against Gibraltar, and destroyed almost the entire British force, and lost most of their force. So that's unfortunate for me, because I'm going to be getting Spain soon. More in other parts of Iberia, I guess Wellington is holding out in Portugal, and nothing much is happening. French units are just paying a visit to Spain.
There were some massive naval battles. Particularly, there was a English Navy storming of the French squadron in Brest, and the Brest squadron was destroyed, but a lot of, I think, 8 or 9
British ships died in that. It's a lot more casualties than I would have wanted, which makes this large French fleet up here more threatening. Because now the British fleet probably can't stand up to it, so the Isles will be exposed, and that's not good. But more in the Mediterranean, the British fleet is finally having to evacuate due to increasing pressure on the home Isles, which is giving control of the Mediterranean to the French and Ottomans and Spanish. Although the Spanish lost their entire fleet in an assault against the British fleet.
Intentionally. Since Napoleon is intending to attack Spain in the very near future.
Napoleon told the Spanish, go kill that British fleet. It'll be great.
Meanwhile, France has been preparing 3 large armies for an invasion of Austria, which has evacuated its Grand Army under either Schwarzenberg or
I think it's
Archduke Charles
at this point.
Okay. We keep going back and forth on that. But Charles has decided to invade the Ottomans to try to create new Austria, since old Austria has some big issues.
It's about to die.
Yeah. But we have Poniatowski, Davout, and Napoleon's Grand Army attacking on 3 sides. Looks like Poland in 1939.
Yeah, this is going to be... Austria will be destroyed. However, the Ottoman sphere is going much better for the coalition, as a supermassive army under Schwarzenberg, the complete Austrian army, is about to... it's going into the Ottoman territories, and I wonder where it's going to go.
We have a bit of a reversal of history where the Ottomans are holding out in Constantinople, sort of like the Byzantines held out against the Ottomans 500 years or 700 years before, but the Christians are pouring through, have landed in Asia Minor, and appear ready to just swarm over Anatolia and make it Christian again for the first time in 1,300 years.
Russian. The Russians...
Russians are Christians.
Okay, well, yeah, you're right. But the Russians, they're about to squeeze in on Anatolian with the help of the Persian Prussians, who are still small, unfortunately. They will grow in strength. And that's about it that's happened there. The Russians finally have gained dominance again in the Black Sea.
Well, the Ottomans abandoned it last turn to go into the Mediterranean.
Yeah, to help out the French. But for the Russians, who are not at war with the French, it looks like they abandoned it. So that's a huge boost in morale. And soon war will be breaking out with France and Russia. And as we just said, France and Austria. Huge wars are about to begin. And we will see what happens on turn 9 and 10 after our strategy updates.
We are about to start turn 9, and this is the proposed French strategy for the upcoming wars, which are just starting between France and Austria, as well as in a few turns, France and Russia. First, in the Spanish area, France is prepared to declare war on Spain and move in forces both from the north and from the south, although they may finish the siege of Gibraltar first. Meanwhile, the French Navy is going to try to control the Mediterranean, at least limit the British or push them out. And then also in the Baltic, the French Navy is going to try to hold onto that sea zone for a little while to create threats of sending units to Scotland to keep the British busy. Meanwhile, Napoleon and his three major armies are going to try to sweep through Austria and then kind of do a threefold attack on Russia, one through the north, possibly a corps, possibly the Grand Army, but the Grand Army might go through the center, take Crimea or sweep up to Moscow from the south, and finally a corps to help support the Ottomans who have been under siege in Constantinople for a while. Finally, the French and the Ottomans will use their control of the Mediterranean Sea to try to land supporting units, at least keep the Russians somewhat contained, not expanding out too much. Also, we hope to keep Kutuzov stuck in Anatolia while the war with Russia begins with French armies rushing into, pardon the pun, but rushing into Russia itself. And we'll see if we can finish the coalition off.
So, as you can probably tell from the gameplay, things have not gone exactly according to plan. My British in the Mediterranean strategy, which was supposed to be a major part of this, ended up not working. In fact, now I'm about to evacuate the large fleet into the Atlantic because of just such a massive French naval buildup in the Baltic Sea. The home isles are under threat, and I don't have a fleet. I thought storming the Brest fleet there would relieve pressure on the British and actually allow them to blockade that fleet in, but instead it damaged my fleet more than expected, and I'm having to withdraw my southern assets to help up north. So the Mediterranean remains in his hands, which is not exactly what I wanted. In the Balkans, or I guess first off, in Prussia and Austria, the French managed to just rip through Austria and Prussia much faster than I expected. They made peace with Russia on turn 4, which is 2 turns earlier than I would have liked. It didn't work out how I expected, and because of that, Russia was not able to concentrate as many men against the Ottoman Empire, which means they did not have the strength to storm Constantinople, which was a major goal. We did end up gaining dominance in the Baltic Sea, or the Black Sea, sorry, but it's not enough to take Constantinople. So I came up with a quick and interesting idea, which would be to send the massive Austrian army to storm Constantinople while the Russians deal with Anatolia. And then eventually, when Austria is forced to make peace after the French cripple their homeland, Russia will just inherit Constantinople from the Austrians by taking over the empty place. And with that, I guess, I don't know, that's just what I gotta hope for, is that this whole plan works. If he sends his large armies into the Balkans, I don't know how I'll be able to hold out. I'll probably end up being pushed out, and my whole strategy could backfire on me. Because instead of doing more useful things with the Russians, if I fail in the Balkans, then I'll have done nothing with the Russians, and the game will be pretty much over. So I have to hold on to Constantinople once Austria storms it. And I guess that's about it for my strategy. I've done better in Spain than I've expected. Gibraltar has held out, and he has not sent that many men to Spain, so I think I can launch a campaign with Wellington. As for future plans, I guess Austria's going to take over the Balkans, or Austria's going to take over Constantinople, and once they surrender, Russia will take back Constantinople when there's no one in it, obviously. And then after that, just got to hold out as Russia against the French as long as I can to allow Austria to re-enter the war in 6 turns or so, allow Britain to regain its hold of its mainland, and start pressuring France through Spain, and possibly again break into the Mediterranean if I've got the strength. But I'm not sure if it'll work out. It's risky, and things did not go initially according to plan, with just the super quick French making peace with Russia. But we will see how things continue on turns 9 and 10. Ending turn 10 with the fall of Constantinople and the French invasion of the British Isles. But first, beginning in Iberia, France declared war on Spain and has attacked them in Cadiz and is besieging Valencia. Okay. Now, the Spanish launched a massive counterattack against the siege of Valencia, trying to relieve it with a force in Madrid, but got diced and wrecked. So the Spanish are now huddling in Madrid and in Valencia, under threat by the French. Wellington is just sitting in Portugal.
Building up, feeling a slight pain in his chest.
No, he's fine. And then over in the Mediterranean, at this point, it's completely Franco-Ottoman dominated, as the Russian fleet just maintains its presence in the Black Sea.
With a historical note of an Ottoman siege of Malta, which is doing better than the 16th century version.
Yeah. So, moving on to the Franco-British Isles area, the British have sort of split apart the French fleet. However, Scotland is firmly in France's hands, and it's got a fortress on it. It looks like it's not going to be taken back for a while. The French have recaptured Iceland, so that's devastating to the British cause.
Okay. Ignore the Russian in Normandy. Russia is at peace.
Ooh, whoopsies.
So could not take Normandy.
That is indeed illegal.
He's a Russian tourist.
He is a tourist. Okay, further over, Austria is about to fall to the large French armies, but they maintain peace with Russia. So even though we thought war would happen, it turns out peace a little longer. But Prussia and the Austrian Empire are both firmly under France's control for now. The main action, again, over the past 2 turns has been happening in the Ottoman Empire, where Austria took Constantinople as Russia took, what is that? That is like Bursa...
Bursa, Smyrna. Yeah. But
and then Russia's now reinforcing Constantinople with the Austrian army.
The Ottomans did put up a good fight. In Constantinople, they caused 28 casualties, so they certainly didn't go down easily.
Yeah, but the Russians are now taking over. They're affirming their control over Anatolia, as they have just taken Erzurum and are now threatening the Ottoman force there. You can see the large armies. Wellington is still small. The Grand Army is large, and it's got some potential, or it's got some friends that are going to make it even larger. And the Austrian army, as we said, was cut down severely. Same with Kutuzov's army, who is now in Constantinople. His army has suffered severely as well, but it's still, they're all forces to be reckoned with by the French. And that's about all that's happened, however, on turn, 9 and 10. And we will see what happens once war begins on turn 11 and 12. We are ending the game at turn 11 with a French victory. So the reasons behind this, I guess first let's start in Iberia. The Spanish and British are just too minimal in Iberia. They don't have enough force to stop the French from taking Lisbon and Madrid within the next few turns. And with Britain tied up in the around the home isles, they're not going to be sending much support anytime soon. Around the British home isles, again, Scotland is a French base, and that's going to be taking a lot of British attention over the next few turns. And so the British are going to be tied up all around their homeland.
Wellington has been recalled from Portugal to help the Battle of
He was
of
moving
Scotland.
back north to help out England. He probably won't make it there in time, though. Well, actually, he will make it there, but England's going to be just so tied up in securing itself, it can't help anywhere else. Moving on, all of Central Europe is pretty much in France's control. Austria
was completely occupied, and Vienna had fallen, so it made peace. But meanwhile, the Treaty of Tilsit has run out, so this is the first turn of France invading Russia. And as one can see, Russia, with its focus on attacking the Ottomans, has some vulnerabilities up north.
So, yeah, at this point, Napoleon is going to have free reign to just occupy. It's still going to be a huge fight, But France is actually at this moment worth 200 euros, and they're only going to be going up with Spain as they take Madrid and later Lisbon and then all of Iberia and get all those bonuses. So France will only be going up in that regard. They'll occupy some of Russia, and then they'll kind of force Russia under siege in Constantinople. And although Russia has done very well in the Ottoman Empire, forcing them back to Damascus, they just don't have enough strength to finish off the Ottoman Empire and deal with Napoleon at the same time.
We're not even sure if Kutuzov can make it back. If Napoleon edges into the Ukraine,
he might be cut
attack.
off. He could be cut off in the Ottoman Empire. And although Russia would put up a fight, just the economic game is completely lost for Russia. So as far as we know, the critical mistakes is, first off, at least in my opinion, as the British Empire, I sent too much force to the Mediterranean, and even though I knew France was building up a large fleet in the Baltic Sea, I didn't recall my Mediterranean fleet fast enough, which meant that I had to scramble to defend the British home isles, abandoning most other locations to the French. And as the Russians, although it was a very interesting strategy, just an all-out for the Ottoman Empire takes away too much effort and stops the Russians from putting that much pressure against France and stopping them from doing such a good job against the British Empire.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I would agree with that. I think, playing France, it was a little bit easier to focus on building ships to fight England and putting the armies where it needs to be without having to defend too much along the coast. So I think Britain having some attacking possibilities along the Atlantic coast would have made it a little bit more difficult, as well as maybe putting up a little stronger fight in Prussia.
That guy's not supposed to be there.
Okay.
He's
yes.
in Austria.
Okay.
It doesn't matter anymore. But yeah, it was a very fun game. It's actually probably a shorter game, only lasting 11 turns. And that is our first game on this new map. What do you think of the new map, actually, after having played on it?
Still looks great to me.
Yeah. It's a lot bigger. That's nice. The avatars aren't quite as useful with the fact that territories can fit so many more units now. But that finishes up our first game on the new map.